Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Troy, thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning. Truly an honor. Thank you. And as we were just discussing, it is April Fool's Day, so we want to make sure that people understand this is not a big April Fool's joke.
Yes. Even though it's hard for me to be serious sometimes, I promise you, this presentation is not an April Fool's joke.
Well, your post this morning got me. You posted that the AICPA published a list of poor audit firms because of quality issues, and I bought it hook, line, and sinker, Troy. So I need to watch out for you during this this
Yeah,
session.
yeah. You never know when I might throw one in there. So yeah, you always gotta be paying attention. That's a good auditor, right? Auditors keep you on your
Oh,
toes, right? See?
that's very complimentary. Thank you. Versus I just fell sucker to your post. Well,
Uh,
happy April Fools, Troy, and happy April Fools, everybody else. This is not an April Fool's joke. This is a legitimate, serious session, but we're super excited to have everybody join, and we're just going to jump right into it. There is Q&A. So feel free to post your questions. We want your questions. We'll be taking a look and monitoring your questions during it and answering any that might make sense to answer. So thank you so much. You know the agenda today. You all signed up for it. Thank you for taking the time. And here we go. So this stat right here is just, I think you can plug in a lot of different frameworks, but SOC 2, I know that's near and dear to you, Troy, myself as well. And so it's just gone crazy over the last several years, like just nuts. And then, as a practitioner, as a security practitioner, less of an auditor, that would be more you, Troy. What we're definitely seeing is these companies are, oh, we've got all these certifications, we've got all these audits. Wow, that must mean our security is better. What do you think about that, Troy? After you
well,
laugh.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that answered the
yeah.
question. What you think about that? Good job.
Yeah, I think yeah, it definitely doesn't always equal more security, right? Yeah, people are laughing.
It is
It,
funny.
but I think it depends too, right? I mean, I kind of liken this to like when you go to interview people at GRC, like if you see somebody in GRC with 2 years of experience and they say they're an expert in like 20 certifications and frameworks, it's probably not the case, right? So I think a lot of times you have to like take it from the context of the company. Not to say that like a small company can't be secure and have like, five, attestations and certifications in place and be good to go. But at the same time, if they've been a company for a year or two and they've done all these things and they did them in 2 weeks, you kind of got to take a step back, right? And ask yourself like, how did they do that? Right? I
Yeah,
mean, that's kind of how I look at it.
that's a really good insight, and it takes us right to this next. My background way back when was project management, and so this is kind of a typical thing out of the project management world, is that, just exactly what you said. If you push the time, like if you shorten the time, you have to give somewhere else. You can't, have cheap budget and less time and full scope because your quality there in the middle is what's going to suffer. And so you bring up a very valid point. Doing security well takes time and discipline and rigor and planning. And when you just blast through all these different certifications in this really, or these attestations in a really short time period, then you have to really say, hey, is the quality really there?
Yeah, exactly. I do want to point out though, like I don't think that low cost necessarily means low quality all the
Sure.
time. Like,
Correct.
from an audit firm perspective, right? I think there's a lot out there where, the bigger audit firms, right? They want to protect their revenue, right? So it's easy to say, hey, these firms are charging low cost. They must be low quality. They must not be doing the audit the right way, right? But whatever the language they want to use. But I don't always think that's the truth, right? I've seen a very high cost audits that are very low quality too. So,
Oh, yes, I have as well.
so I think
I won't name
cost,
names, but yep.
yeah. Yeah, and sometimes you're paying for the brand, right? We all get
That's
that,
true.
but
Yeah.
um, and maybe that's what a lot of the cost is you're paying for is really the brand for most of it, right? So if it's not a known brand, it's gonna be a lower cost, but you got to take it in the context of the company that's being audited. If they're a small 10-person company,
Yep.
the audit won't cost as much, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean quality, and the risk is not there, from an audit perspective. If it's a smaller company, it doesn't take as much to do the audit, so the cost should
Yeah.
be less, right? Um,
Yeah,
are
but
there
you
companies that are? Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say what you just said kept all this in balance. It's a smaller company, so the scope is lower. It's not going to take as much, so the time is lower. It's going to be lower cost. You kept quality and balance. That's good.
Yes, exactly. That's a good point. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But I do think
Yeah,
that
it's a great
there's
point.
I think there are, of course, there are firms out there that are probably going below the minimum, so to speak, whatever. I like to refer to the term minimum viable audit. You have a minimal
But
viable product.
we got an
Yeah, we need a
MBA.
minimal viable audit
Yeah.
standard or whatever we want to call it, but an MVA, because I think there are people and firms that are uh, you know, going below that, I guess I
Yeah.
would say, and they're getting away with it. How they're doing that, I mean, I don't know the details of all these firms, but there are definitely firms out there that are um, going below that minimal viable audit or minimum viable audit
Yeah.
standard, and we do need to raise the bar for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the AICPA in the SOC 2 world has set that MVA, but but unfortunately, there's firms that skirt that, and we're going to talk about maybe why some of that is has happened and come to be. And then you take things like ISO. I mean, quite frankly, there's really no overarching governing body that really, monitors all of that. And so ISO audits are all over the place. I think the point here is that the audit should be right sized, just like the security program should be right sized. And if the scope is less or different things in like you said, the risk is less, like maybe they don't even have PHI or PII or any really high confidential data. They just want to get their SOC 2, for example, then the audit should be right size. I think some of the larger audit firms, that's where you get the cost. They just do the cost because they do have the brand and, that's great for them. But then you look at some of the smaller guys, well, they can't really adhere that and their risk posture, quite frankly, is not the same and their scope is not the same. And so that really did open the door up for the right size audit. So to your point, like cheaper doesn't necessarily mean worse. It could just be that it's right size to that organization. But let's talk about, how did all this happen? Like, why did this become like this big thing over the last, especially, really few years? For us, it's funny. I have this conversation a lot of times with folks because people think that breaches and data loss is like the big fear. And so, oh, okay, we got to do this because of breaches or data loss. Can I tell you most, I think we're all just so desensitized to it. I love to use the example of driving the car on the road. I mean, we all see speed limit signs and we almost don't even notice they're there, right? Because we're just desensitized. We're just going to drive what we're going to drive. And it's kind of the same thing with breaches, I feel like. And so, but what really does motivate, what really, from our perspective, and I'll be curious to hear your thoughts, is the customer pressure. So customers have gotten smarter over the last few years about security. So they're asking harder questions, they're digging in more, and then quite frankly, they'll take their revenue somewhere else if they don't get the right answers that they expect around security. Are you seeing the same things? And what do you think has been like some of the primary motivators to just really amping this game up?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely customers and prospects, right? Sales. I mean, sales that at least what I've seen, it's becoming table stakes, right?
Yep.
So, and
Yep.
even in the last 5 years, I think I've seen, um, companies that are just building their companies, and actually before they even have a product, they're starting to go through SOC 2. Like they don't even have a fully baked out product yet. I see that more and more. I don't know if I would. I mean, I get it. They're trying to like before they go live and get out of
Yeah,
beta and really
that's
go public,
good.
they want to say we have
Yeah.
a SOC 2. Um, but So I get it, but at the same time, it's like it's hard to audit something if it's not fully built out yet. So those are interesting situations. But I have
Yeah.
seen more and more in that. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's actually a good thing that people are thinking about that early on. Um, but I think you also have to understand the types of customers you're going to go after, right? So
Good
if you're
point.
trying to target like enterprise customers and bigger customers,
Yep.
100%, like you're going to need that probably from day one. If you're just trying to go after smaller companies and that don't even have a third party risk team and they're startups just like you, they're probably not that they don't care about security, but they have a different motivation to use your product, right? Security, they don't have somebody necessarily internally saying, hey, we can't use your product unless it has a SOC 2, right? So I
Yeah.
think you really need to consider that before just going down the SOC 2 path, before even having a fully baked out product. Like, what's my ICP? What's my ideal customer profile? Bigger
Yeah.
customers, yeah, we need this compliance. If it's going to be smaller customers to start out, honestly, you probably don't need it initially.
Yeah,
Um,
that is interesting. And customers are generally pretty forgiving. Like I tell companies all the time because they'll ask, well, should I do this? Should I do that? When should I do that? And I said the answer is really simple. You should do that stuff when your customers are asking. If your customers start asking for ISO, then do ISO. If your customers start asking for SOC 2, then do SOC 2. If they ask for CMMC, then start going down the CMMC path, or if you know that's coming. It's really customer driven in my opinion because this stuff can get so daunting and overwhelming, and there's literally hundreds of frameworks and regulatory and authoritative sources out there, and you can just drive yourself crazy. So definitely you're right. Now, a startup company should be thinking about security from day one. I think we both agree with that. But
yes.
yes, do I need to run and go get a SOC 2, one that's not fully baked, one that probably is just the easy button and really doesn't validate a whole lot? Yeah, what's really the point there? It would be better to, you know, focus on security, prioritize security, and then do that step when that makes sense and do it with a reputable audit firm and do it in a reputable way so that attestation will have some weight to it. So really great point.
And I do think regulators play a big role in this too. Just thinking about AI, and I
Hmm.
know the US is, we're not really moving towards towards more regulation right now, but if you're working with customers in the EU,
Yes.
um, and you have an AI product, their chances are they're going to be asking about, hey, do you comply with this EU Act? Maybe do you have ISO 42001? Like
Yeah.
companies in the EU, they're going to be forced to do it because of their regulatory pressures that they're facing
Yeah.
there. So maybe not so much in the US. Of course, there are some, but we have other things going on with that. But definitely in the EU and other countries, they're facing regulatory pressure, and they're going to pass it on to
Yep.
vendors that are using AI. So I would definitely
Yeah.
add that in as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. We're doing a fair amount of DORA for that very reason, because yeah, it's getting pushed down. And then it's a global world in a lot of ways, especially with a lot of companies. They are in the global markets, and you bring up a very valid point that definitely need to focus on that. So why do we keep falling into this trap of, these kind of audits that maybe don't add as much value into the organization as they should. These audits that kind of think that that some people think validate security and maybe not as much as they think so. Like there's several things that we're going to talk about here. So first is just human nature. So human nature by definition will seem to always take the easy way out, right? Like that's just kind of who we are. And so with these audits, kind of you brought up those small startups, it can be that perception of, oh, look, we got our SOC 2. Yeah, but what if I pull up the hood, like what really was the rigor that went into that, and what really does your security program look like versus, something that was easy and quick to do, and then, oh, I'll just follow step of what this thing tells me to do. Meanwhile, I never even considered the actual risk to the organization and really where I should be focusing attention. So, what are your thoughts on this? You think human nature plays a part in all this?
I think human nature wants to take the path of least resistance, 100%. And
Mhm.
I don't think anybody's stopping them. And
Yep.
the anybody could be oversight of the audit firms that might be going below that MVA we just talked about.
Yeah.
But it's also the market that these companies are working with, right? I mean, if they're going for a SOC 2 and their big prospect or big customer takes that SOC 2 report and just says, yes, you're good, and doesn't push back, if you're using a firm that they believe might not be doing a good job or might not be meeting the MBA, then guess what these companies are going to keep doing?
Yeah.
What's the path of least resistance? So I
So
always
true.
point the reason this is happening is because the market is letting it happen. And this to me, the market is the people relying on these attestations, relying on these certifications. It's not just SOC 2, it's ISO, it's all of them. I could find cheap auditors for all of them,
Oh,
any
all of
framework
them.
out there,
Totally
we can
agree.
name them.
Yep.
But the market lets it happen either because they don't have maybe they don't have the people internally that know how to read these reports or understand these reports.
Yeah.
They internally have pressure from their business to get this vendor across the board because they really want the product and they really want the tool.
Yeah.
So it's like, how fast can we move? Because, hey, this is a cool new AI tool and my competitors are using it. Hey, internal risk team, like we need to use this tool. Do they have a SOC 2 report? Yes. Okay, let's move on. So
Yeah.
in my opinion, a big part of it is the market is letting it happen. Or I don't know, letting it, accepting it. They're accepting what's going on, whether they are ignorant. I mean, I hear people say, like, how do we know it's a low quality audit? There could be some of that where people just don't know. I understand that. Me and you are in this field every day. I've been in it
Yeah.
for 15 years, so it's easy for me to identify this and do this very quickly and be like,
Yeah.
yeah, we wouldn't accept that. And some big companies have people in GRC that have been doing this a long time and understand that too. But I think there's a lot of big companies that really don't even know how to read a SOC 2 report, anybody in their third party team. And
So
it
true.
really is a checkbox. And so the market is accepting it, whether they understand it or not. They are. And then again, I've heard arguments that, like, hey, the market shouldn't be determining quality, right? It's the oversight bodies of all these the
Yeah.
accreditation bodies, right? So the AICPA and the state boards for SOC 2, the
Yeah.
PCI DSSS for PCI, high trust um, you know, high trust governing board for high trust. That's their job to control quality. And I 100% agree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. But I also think the easiest way to fix this is for the market to say, like, hey, we'll accept this SOC 2 report, but because you used this firm, we're going to do extra
Yeah.
due
Exactly.
diligence on you. We're not rejecting it. We just feel like we have to do a little bit more here because for whatever reason they decided on that firm not being meeting their standards. But
Yeah.
that's kind of normal with all this.
Yeah, you bring up a very valid point. It's on both sides, honestly. You're right. So many of, we're talking about checkbox audits and how they don't really add value to the organization. But then you flip it on the other side, the third party risk program at a lot of companies, they become very checkbox too. I mean, the reality is it's a massive amount of work, hundreds of questions on questionnaires, lots of different vendors, programs that are not necessarily designed the way they should be designed to be really, streamlined to ferreting out and mitigating risk. And then on top of that, resource issues. A lot of those third party risk people are very entry level people. And so they just, to your point, they don't necessarily have that wealth of experience. And then I love you brought up the pressure of, well, just it's fine. I'll accept the risk. Just I'll accept. I worked with one CEO years ago, and every time I turn around, I'll accept the risk. I'll accept the risk. I'm like, you can't just keep saying that. Like, come on, that's not what this is. You can't personally accept all the risk. And that's very common. Like it's fine, just push it through. And then you take security folks on the flip side who tend to be very no oriented, and so then it's like, okay, I'm just going to ignore those people and just do what I need to do to run the business. And there is this balance between risk and reward. I get it, but that's the whole point. It's a risk analysis. So I love that you brought that up. Thank you. And so another reason is cultural norm. So you're talking about this as well. Exactly that, like this priority of getting to the finish line quickly. And then that first bullet there is the big one for me. It's like we're all like focused on the wrong thing. It's like if I take a class, I should be focused on what I learned and how much I grew through the process. But we're all focused on what I got on the final exam. And that's it. Like, oh, I got an 85 on the final exam. I'm good. Okay, but you didn't
Yep.
learn anything, and two weeks from now, you're not going to know anything because you just crammed for the exam, or worse yet, you read all the online stuff and found the worst teacher you could find out there that was the easiest. That all the students from last semester published the exam, and you just memorized the exam, and so you're celebrating something where there is no celebration at all, and that's a lot of what has become the norm is. Oh, I hear from executives all the time. Well, we passed our audit, so what's the problem? Well, the problem is you're not mitigating risk. The problem is you have no security program. That is the problem. You're so fixated on the wrong thing that you're missing the point of why we even do all of this.
Yep. Yeah. Compliance should not drive
No,
your risk mitigation. It should be the opposite. But but I think a
it
lot of
is.
people, and I get it why, like, again, like a new startup company, they need to make revenue, right? So at the end of the
Yeah,
day, they, compliance is going to drive their security program. But as they mature and as they get more complex, get bigger customers, and get harder questions, they're eventually going to have to hire dedicated people and get
yep.
dedicated, invest in, I'll call it, I don't want to say real security. I don't know if I like that term, but invest in dedicated security products, that actually uh, are not cheap. So, a lot of times I think a lot of times, to your point, like you think you're secure, I guess, with these quick audits, but then you bring in somebody that is dedicated to securities or GRC, and they're like, well, we should really have A, B, C, D, and E,
Yeah,
these tools. Oh no, these tools are actually kind of expensive. Like we didn't even understand that. We didn't even budget for it. So now what do we do? Right. So I think a lot of security and GRC people come into a company that has very good intentions. Like, hey, like even with the audit, right? Maybe we're using an audit firm. We know we kind of they're not necessarily the best. Oh no, an audit firm that we know is going to do a better job and actually like we feel more comfortable with is going to be 2 or 3x the price. Well, now what do we do? So it's
uh,
like they want security, but they don't always want to invest in security or
that's true.
compliance.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
that's a hard conversation internally, I think, for a lot of people that are the first hire at a company. I don't know a good way to do that because you might have came in the middle. They've already budgeted. They budgeted for you, and you've already came in after they budgeted for the next 12 months, and it's like, okay, so what do I do now? We only
Yeah,
have this certain amount of budget. Okay, now I got to make this culture change. How do I
yeah,
go about that? And that's
yeah.
like
That's hard.
90% of the job when you
Yeah,
first start.
and that is not an easy job getting in the minds of people and helping to change their minds about things. You mentioned tools, and yes, tools is definitely a part of this, but and I'm sure you see this too, where we see most companies fail, quite frankly, is the people in the process. They'll buy the tools and they're not configured properly. They don't have end-to-end process around them. Nobody understands the roles and responsibilities. So it's funny, we see very similarly the opposite. Like we have, a lot of companies have two, three, four GRC tools, and none of them are implemented well. And yet they're paying for them. So it's not a money problem. It's a people and process problem is most of the game, quite
Yeah.
frankly. And then you commented about, you know, we're using this audit firm, which we know, they're not really that great. But if we switch, it would cost us more. Can I tell you, it's not always the cost. A lot of times it's not the cost. We work with several companies that intentionally will, stay kind of with this because they don't really pressure them. But it's not like it's cheap.
Yeah.
It's just they know they're gonna pass,
It's like,
and so
yeah, I
they're
see what you're saying.
afraid
It's a
to
less
move
rigor,
somewhere
less rigor.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a I agree with that. And you know, as an auditor, I think about that too, right? Like, I mean, you can't be like overzealous and too rigorous because then that's like not reasonable, right? What is reasonable assurance, right? That's what it comes down to, right? So
Yep.
that's a hard thing to define, of course. That's
Yeah.
it's a vague term, but I try to be reasonable in my approach and fair. That's how I always try to do
Right.
it. Uh, I don't want to be the most rigorous. I don't want to be the least rigorous. I want to be the Goldilocks of rigor, I guess. But
Yeah.
that's a hard balance to find, and I can definitely see that somebody at a company who needs a clean audit, wants to use a firm they know they're going to get a clean audit so that they don't have that internal pressure internally.
Yeah, but if you're doing the right thing, again, audit, when you come in as an auditor, you're validating what I'm already doing. So
Shouldn't have to worry.
I should have no concerns about that because you're
Yeah,
validating what I'm already mitigating risk for my company. I'm already building a program and running it appropriately. You're coming in and validating that. Okay.
yeah,
So you're just giving me confidence that what I'm doing is working from an external perspective. However, when again we've got it completely backwards, now I'm trying to do as minimal as possible to try to pass, and then now I'm afraid of you because, oh, I hope you don't figure this out. When the reality is, if I'm just doing the right thing, audit is not hard. It's not that big a deal, to your point. And then
yeah,
your figure is just to feel confident that, yep, okay, you guys have fairly represented yourselves, and that's pretty much what it is. So no, that's really great dialogue. And then let's briefly talk about the platforms. This has been this we could talk 4 hours about this one topic, but we're not going to do that. Um, but I mean, here's this other thing. You said the path of least resistance. Well, here's another one right here. Buy my low cost tool, push this button, and voila, you out pops a SOC 2 report, for example. What are your thoughts on that briefly?
well, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you kind of said that. I guess I always come back to like audit firms are letting this happen, so to speak. Like you can't get that SOC 2 in 2 weeks as you have on the slides right
Not even
here.
according to the AICPA's own standard. It's not possible if you read, like, here's the steps of the engagement.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. Unless there's firms that are willing to do that.
And
And
there
I
are.
will say, yeah, and I will say this too about I don't think necessarily that I think this was happening even before GRC platforms. Like I remember, 10, probably a little over 10 years ago when I was at a regional firm, there were firms that were undercutting us by 2x or 3x already, and there were GRC platforms like the legacy ones, but there weren't these automation platforms that I call. What I think happened is the GRC automation platforms were able to kind of scale that very quickly.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
and so the problem always existed, I think, but it became um, more surface level and to the masses when they were able to when the GRC platforms came, it kind of scaled it, and then audit firms were started just to work with the
Yes,
automation platforms.
that is
So they
correct.
didn't even have any, legacy audit, I guess, clients. All their clients came from the new age, I guess, platforms.
Yeah.
The platforms aren't bad necessarily. It's just
No,
like
I
what you
was,
said, people and
yeah,
processes, right? It doesn't matter what tools you're using. If you don't have
correct.
the right people or processes in place, a tool is not really going to help. So what's happening is, people are buying these tools. Maybe they're just buying an audit and they know that. So
And they
I've
know
always
that.
thought like, do they know they're just buying a quick, easy, cheap audit?
Some do, some do
And
not. Yeah.
and some might not.
Yeah.
And they usually figure that out though, that if they didn't
Yes.
do that, it just might take time. Um, but there is a right way to use the tools. I just think that it kind of goes back to everything we are talking about. There's internal
Yeah.
pressure to move fast and quick and cheap, and
Yeah.
maybe that's okay for like the 10-person company too. Like, I don't want to say like it's not necessarily the wrong way. You know, when you're a small business owner, if you can,
Yeah.
think revenue is important, costs are important. But maybe those companies don't even need a SOC 2. Like I've always thought about that too. Like they're only getting a SOC 2 because they're told in a contract, but maybe these companies shouldn't even be getting a full SOC 2. Maybe there should be like a SOC 2 light, or like,
Uh,
you're a small 10-person company, like we're only paying you, you know, we're only paying you $8,000 a year. Why are you getting a SOC 2? Like we don't even need a SOC 2 from you. We just need
yeah, that's a fair
this from
point.
you. Like, that's
Like
also
it's in the
creating the problem. Like,
design.
like everyone's getting a SOC 2, but they don't might not even need one technically. Like it, but they're just getting it because that's what everybody wants them to do, I guess.
Now, within SOC 2, for example, you can design your controls based on risk. So it is a non-prescriptive framework to give you that flexibility. That's its intent. But to your point, people don't normally take that approach. They just skip ahead to just give me the 50 things I need to do, and I'm just going to go do it. And that way I can just do my audit. Again, missing the whole point of why we're doing that. Now, I do want to say I'm a tech person. So technology is great. You know, automation is great. We should not do these things, the old fashioned on paper way. Like, it should definitely be automation, especially in the cloud world. The automation is so easy to go after. So I'm a huge proponent of that. And, we have several GRC tool companies that we work with. But the minute it just tries to become the easy button, because that's human nature, the path of least resistance. And we're not talking about just the small guys, very large, publicly traded companies play this game as well. I know for a fact because I've worked with them. And so
Yeah,
they
that's
play this whole
interesting.
audit
Yeah.
game as well. Oh, and unfortunately, sometimes executives, they just don't know what they don't know. They believe the marketing, they believe all that. Oh, if we just get this, then everything is great. Meanwhile, you've missed the whole risk thing. You've missed the whole fact that security is to mitigate risk. It's never to pass audits. Audits is like way down the line from what you're doing. And then that kind of takes us into, kind of a last big reason of why we fall into this. And you've mentioned it. It's just resources. There needs to be budgets put behind this. You mentioned appropriate tools, definitely appropriate tooling, but you got to cover the people in process as well, which means you need resources put onto people in process. You need actual people put onto that. And then, quite frankly, there's a shortage of these resources in the world. You mentioned that earlier as well, Troy, that, we've been doing this for a while. And so this is just kind of second nature to us. But there's not like tons of people in the world that have that kind of deep experience. And so companies are either it's somebody's side gig in the company, like, oh, here's a security person who's already tasked, 200 and 300% of your job. You can just do this on the side too, right? Like, that's not a big deal, right? You could just do this. And so we talk to them all
Yeah.
the time. And so now they get tasked with stuff. They don't know it. They don't like it. They just want to do their security thing and just leave them alone. And so then there's that, so that's a resource problem. And then unfortunately, companies will go and hire, interns or very limited experience and like, oh, okay, you just go do this. It'll be fine, right? It's easy. It's easy. And they do that. And so there's, and then of course there's just the whole budget game of just not committing budget to it. So those are very real problems with all of this. I'm sure you see exactly the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't like it kind of goes back to like when are you ready to hire like a dedicated GRC or security person, right? Like that number of employees might be very high for that to happen, right? So if you don't have a dedicated person, then yeah, it's going to be like a like you said, a part-time role for them, or they're the head of engineering and they're tasked with leading SOC 2 compliance initiatives. And then it's like, SOC 2 people don't understand SOC 2. Well, a lot of people understand now, but I guess if you're new to it, 50% of SOC 2 or ISO or any of these, well, I don't know about all of them, but I will say SOC 2 and ISO, a lot of it is not technic
Correct.
technology based. So there's a lot of
That's correct.
entity level stuff. There's people,
Yep.
ops
Yep.
controls, there's communications, there's risk assessment. Like, so if you're head of
Yep.
engineering and all of a sudden it's like, I got to figure out how to do these HR controls, it's like, wait a
Correct.
second. That's like a whole nother
Yep.
world to me. Now I got to involve this person. I got to set up these meetings. I just want to build the product. Like, so
Exactly.
when you think about all that, right? Like IT onboarding, offboarding, like think, okay, if you're giving it to somebody that's, not dedicated and is seeing that from a high level and understands how all the pieces of the company talk to each other, it's probably going to be like patched together and the little
Oh
here
yeah.
might be good, this might not be good, and no fault of their own. They're just kind of trying to make it work, but they have another primary role to do. So I think that leads to
Exactly.
a lot of this.
It does. I think it leads, it definitely contributes to the easy path because I just want to get it off my plate. I don't really have time to do this anyway. I don't care about it. I don't know about it. And then, unfortunately, that's a bad on the leadership of the organization to take that approach because that's not the appropriate solution. This is a discipline, having a security program, which is the CISO's predominant responsibility, and then how we measure and monitor that is a responsibility of the organization and the leadership of the organization. And so to just kind of farm it out as somebody's side gig, that's not great. And then we work with a lot of companies. And again, these are not small startup companies. And we work with large publicly traded companies, and they have one person, running all of this. They'll have one resource and they can't get another resource to save their life, which, yay us, we get the opportunity to work with them and to really augment their team. And I was going to say that shameless plug that if you can't have the internal resources and you can't find them, then hire it out. Look for good third party resources to
Yeah.
augment in some sort of fractional way. I only need this much of a resource, or I only need these particular activities with that higher level expertise and skill. But really, this kind of sums up what we're saying is that security is about identifying, mitigating risk, monitoring that risk mitigation, and then continually improving it. Like that's what this is about. Compliance comes along after the fact as an attestation or a judge of that. And then based on the rules of the particular framework, certification, whatever, then that's how the audit is conducted. But I love that statement. Compliance is the mirror, should be the mirror of what you're already doing. It was never intended to be the measurement of it. And that's where things have just really gotten off. Instead of saying, oh, we passed the audit, so we're good, which I hear far too many executives, they just do not know how wrong that thought process is. But oh, we passed the audit, we're fine. Nothing to do with security. It should be everything to do with security. But if you're not building and running the program and asking the questions, are we actually mitigating the risk? Are we actually safe? Are we protecting data, our customers, our employees? Then audit comes along as a mirror of that. I'm sure you would emphatically agree.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Don't Security and risk should drive uh risk mitigation, not compliance. So if it sounds easy to do, but I it's not always that easy, unfortunately. But
It's not. Because compliance is the pressure. I mean, that's the thing they're getting
yeah,
asked for. I need an ISO. I need a SOC 2. I need it yesterday. I hear this
yeah,
too. Oh, we just signed a contract that said we already had it. How long can we get it till we can get it? I'm like, you can't do that. You can't sign contracts that you already have this stuff. But I hear it. And then we need to get through it. And so,
yeah,
yeah, there's
and
where things are off.
security. I mean, security takes time, right? Like you just
It
talked about it
does.
too before. You can buy all the tools in the world, but if you don't configure them and implement them and monitor them and update them and watch,
Yep.
then what's the point, right? So, and it takes time to find the right tools, right? You're going to talk to multiple vendors, and all that takes time. But guess what? Sales needs a SOC 2 yesterday.
Yep.
What do we do?
What do we
So,
do? There you
uh,
go.
like, what do you do? Okay, we got
Yep.
to get a SOC 2, but we really don't have any of these tools in place. And by the way, as a leader of this company, I have 20 other things I'm already worrying about. So,
So true.
what do we do
And
here, guys?
I think the answer to your question is it's a journey. We work with companies all the time to help them be successful in their audits because that's real, because that's tied to revenue. So I get it. And there is, you can definitely achieve MVP or MBA as your first kind of cut. But the point is this is a journey. And so continuous improvement should be baked into the cycle. So even if you maybe took the easy path for a SOC 2 or an ISO in the beginning, that is what it is. That's great because there was probably revenue tied to that. But the point is continue to improve that, continue to expand that program, get further away from compliance being your measure and closer to risk being your measure to craft what you do from a security standpoint. And if you're not having that year over year improvement, then you're not doing it correctly. If you're just passing your audits every year and then, oh, we're good, you're missing the whole point. So let's talk about that for a second. So what are the real risks for over relying on these audits? Because we see it every day, and definitely can see some things there on the screen. One of the main things that I see is executives do not know what they do not know about this stuff. And so taking the shortcut easy button to pass the audit, while I can understand that can be an initial milestone along a longer journey, the reality is a lot of executives see that as, well, we were successful with the audit. So I'm sorry, why do you need all this money now? I don't understand. I thought we already passed. So what are you asking me for? And so it actually is counterproductive to getting budget funding, because then executives sit in this world that, oh, we're good. So I don't know why, security person, you're asking me for all this stuff. You must be crazy. And so it's sending that. Do you see similar, or what do you think are the risks of over relying upon these audits?
Well, I think the last one listed is, in my opinion, was always the biggest risk, right?
Okay.
That false sense of security, but also not even understanding that it's a false sense of security. I think it's like, yes, we got the audit, so we're good to go. So we become complacent. Why should we ever improve? We're good. We
Yeah.
got the stamp of approval.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a false sense. I've always said the false sense of security because it's sorry, I thought someone was gonna walk in. It's false. Um, not knowing that this audit is just the bare minimum is a risk to your company, right? And it might not even be because you used a low quality auditor either. I don't want that to be the people to think that either. Like just because you used a low quality audit firm, like so the SOC 2 is bad. I mean, you could be using a good auditor, whatever, however we want to define that, and you could still become complacent, right, with SOC 2. I think to your point earlier,
Oh,
it
absolutely.
should always be evolving and improving.
Should be. Yeah.
Um, so if SOC 2 is the goal, then you're probably missing the point, like you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
But I always point to that last one, in my opinion,
Good.
as the biggest risk to all this.
Oh, I totally agree. And we're going to actually, on the next slide, there's a little real world thing we're going to talk about in just a second. But there's a question that I want you to answer, Troy. In your experience, are there telltale signs that an organization's compliance posture is performative versus security focused? I'm sure from an auditor, you can tell. As an auditor, you can tell.
If it's not security focused, pretty much. And then, is that what?
Basically, that's the question.
Um, yeah, I mean, you can honestly, I try not to take on those types of clients if you want the honest truth.
Ah, that's
Like,
awesome.
like you try to I try to kind of gauge that even before as part of the discovery or
That's
call,
great.
right? Or a prospect call. Like you can
Yep.
kind of why are you doing this? You can almost tell just by the energy of the conversation even, how are they taking this conversation? Are they even paying attention to what you're saying? Are they having a good conversation about how this audit's going to go? Like, honestly, you could tell, maybe because I've been doing this a long time, but
Yeah.
I can tell pretty quickly if it's going to be performative based, I guess that was the terminology,
Yep.
or security focused. And a lot of times too, it kind of bringing this all together, it's like a lot of times people understand, look, I understand we have to do this. We want to get to here eventually, but for this first audit, like you kind of said before, we kind of need to just get this, and but we want to get better after this, and we hope you can help us get better and provide us recommendations. So even if someone approaches it like that, I appreciate that they're being transparent and honest about it, and hey, we have a
Yeah.
plan to get better after this first one, but for this first one, it might
Give
be a
us some
little clunky,
grace.
and but we
Yes.
need to, because look, here's the situation. But I promise you, we're trying to get better, and you can tell if they're genuine. You can tell if they're being genuine. At least I can. I think I usually can, just because I've been doing it a while.
Yeah.
Um, so I always appreciate that when someone's at least transparent about that, and they understand the
Absolutely.
first one might be a little not up to par or what you're used to, but work with us, help us get better, and let's make this better and get better as we move on. So.
That's great. I hear the phrase, we want to do the right thing, whenever I hear that from a client always makes me very happy because I mean, it's a fixed world. Like, give me a break. There's not unlimited money, there's not unlimited people, there's not unlimited time. We all get that. So we make the best as we can with those decisions, just like what you just said. But when somebody is, but we want to do the right thing. We want, we want to do what we're supposed to do. We just don't know. That's really where you start to see that integrity shine through. And then you know that, okay, they're trying to do what they should do versus, oh, just help me check these boxes as fast as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And so that is a very different approach. So no,
And
that's really good.
I try to price my audit so it's like, yeah, if you're just trying to do the opposite of what the type of clients I want to work with, you're probably not going to want to pay my fees. So I try to
Yeah.
like it's kind of like pricing those clients out initially,
Ah,
so that you know, not that like I mean, yes, it's a market, so maybe the audit I'm pricing that might be a lot cheaper than what they've been paying, right? Depending on the audit firm they've been working with. But if they're new to this, have never done it before, and they're been a company for a little bit under 50 employees, like my pricing is kind of priced in a way that like, hey, does that 50 to 100-person company, do they want to try to do this the right way? Like if that price point that I'm giving them is like way out of their price range, and I know like even if they want to do the right thing, it probably won't be possible. So
yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit here at the end about picking a good audit firm, but those are really good points. There's a question, what organizational or cultural changes are necessary to transition from a checkbox strategy to a risk-based approach? I think, the main thing there is that first bullet under the way forward is the answer to that question. This is about running a program to protect our businesses, data, people, all the above. And so really you have to shift the focus away from the audits that we've passed and you shift their focus to metrics and articulation of what that risk posture really is. Then compliance becomes the secondary conversation, running the program becomes the primary conversation. And so the way you do that is you build and run a program. And so we talked about GRC tools earlier. So GRC tools can greatly help in this. Some of the GRC, well, several of the GRC tools, they have compliance and risk tied together. As you run your compliance program, which is controls, mitigating risk, it's not passing audits, it's controls, mitigating risks. And then those controls fail, and they do, or those controls have low maturity, and they do, that reflects in your risk. And so then you're able to start to have that conversation with your executives and be very consistent in that conversation. Oh, but do we pass our SOC 2, which is not even a thing, but that's a different conversation, Troy. I hear it all the time. So, yes, we were successful with our SOC 2. Yes, we got our report. However, that's secondary to let me show you what our risk posture is. And oh, by the way, it's gone down from last month or, gone more negative. Oh, well, why is that? Well, because Bob forgot to do 3 of the user access reviews that were due, and that definitely interest, or we found, over number of terminated people in those user access reviews, which then we know that control is not working as well. So therefore our risk posture has changed. That's how you start to affect that change within the organization is you talk to them on a different level all around risk and you stop talking about passing the audits.
yep. And I would say you gotta have to take a walk, crawl, run approach.
Yeah,
So if we're gonna talk about risk, all right, if we're doing this for the first time, like yes, you could have all these like extensive risk assessments and all this. The more words you put on a screen to these people, the less they're gonna pay attention. It's like,
that's true.
what are our top 5 risks right
That's
now?
it.
And
Very
like
good
let's
point.
start there.
Yes,
Um, and let's focus on these. Like we have to start somewhere. And if you try to boil the ocean, it doesn't work.
it
So
does not.
you have to start small. And I think that's, big change always starts with small change. That's just how
Yep.
it works in everything in life, right? You have to start small. And nobody wants somebody to come in and all of a sudden just trying to change everything and force people to do things a certain way. Like, no, that's the wrong way to change a culture.
It
And that
is.
never works. And I would say too, if you have the ability to hire somebody who can be dedicated to this stuff, invest in that and
Yeah.
or outsource it to something like Hotman Group. Like you really want somebody who's paying attention to these things
Yep.
so that you because the people internally are focused, like as we talked about, they're usually focused on other things. It's not that they don't care about security, they might just not have the time to focus on it. And so you
Correct.
need to invest in the right people that can help you change that culture.
Yeah.
And they have to start small, and they have to be the right culture fit for your type of company.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it always starts from the top. If the top
Oh,
doesn't want the culture change, it
so
doesn't
true.
matter. So they have to be on board. And usually, to tell if they're on board is that they invest in it. If they're willing to put
Yeah.
their money where their mouth is, that's how you can tell that they're on board with shifting that culture.
Yeah, that's so true. I always say it's top down and bottom up. It's both. Bottom up has to do the right thing to inform the top what they need to know. So we work with companies and they can't they can't even explain it to the executives in any sort of intelligible way where they even understand what they're looking at. So they get confused, and to your point, it's too many words. I don't even know what you're saying to me, so just go away. And so you've lost. So there's where the bottom up has failed to inform them and to be consistent and crisp in how they do it. But then you're right, it's top down, because if the top, if I can't escalate all the way up to the top and they take it seriously and they do what they need to do because they know risk is involved, I've lost the game. Then I'm cut off at the knees at the bottom layer. So it definitely is both directions. That's a really great point. So quickly, we're just going to go through this, not picking on high trust, but we all know about this particular breach. By the way, high trust, very rigorous, at least from a paper standpoint. It's very rigorous in its, audit. The high trust organization has to look at all of the results. You have to submit it through them and they have to review it. And to your point, Troy, the audit firms and the governing around it, well, high trust is trying to, solve that problem. Okay, but the
Yep.
breach still happened. I mean, that's just the whole point. Like, the certification and the breach, they're like not related. Like, give me a break. You're
Yeah.
certified. It's not, doesn't mean you're not going to have a breach. You're not certified, it doesn't mean you're going to have a breach. Like, it's all about how you identify and mitigate risk. Like, this is not hard. And so what was really the failure here? No MFA. Okay, well, that's a control failure, stolen credentials. So somebody probably didn't do what they were supposed to do. So that's probably a people failure. And then no MFA. Okay, that's a people failure as well. Again, that's why I say, did this company have MFA capabilities from a technology standpoint? Yes. The failure was process. And most always, the failure is people and process. And even if they bought a tool, if the tool is not appropriately deployed, appropriately monitored, appropriately configured, then it still becomes a people and a process failure. And so that was really the breakdown there. And not saying that Change Healthcare did anything wrong in their high trust certification. It's just the whole point that audits are nothing more than a point in time assessment of what you're doing. And they definitely take a sampling approach. They're not looking at every last thing. It's not possible. It's literally just these touch points at this point in time. And if you have a reputable auditor like yourself, Troy, then you're going to do your rigor around those. But it's not possible that you look at everything. It's just not realistic. And then it's not hard to go find a less reputable or non-reputable auditor, not like yourself. And then they're just like, yep, 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 all good, check. And I'm not saying that's what happened, what happened here, but large organization, healthcare, they take security and risk mitigation seriously. It's a single control failure that, yeah, it did not get caught in all of this. And so that is really what we're doing. So what, as we're looking at our time here, what these are some red flags to look for. So which of these kind of really stand out to you, Troy, to just really, we talked about, I feel like we've talked about some of these as we've gone through, but what's
Yeah.
one that you really just stands out to you?
The no human contact says zero touch,
Yep.
or zero effort required. Like, if you value not talking to your auditor, great. I mean, fine. That's cool. But I think a lot of people at least want to know who's auditing them and have these types of discussions with them. Like, yeah, I don't think you need to be afraid. Kind of going back to what you said about rigor and people don't want to change auditors. It's like Yeah, some auditors are not good to work with, but I think if you find the right auditor who is able to understand risk and have real conversations with you and can like understand why you're doing something a certain way or kind of be flexible in how they approach it or understand your specific risk posture, that's actually an auditor you want to work with. Like that's somebody that's going to make you better and educate
Yeah.
you. Um, but if you know that you're not going to get that from your auditor and you're just paying for the cheapest, yeah, you probably don't want to talk to them because they're not going
Yeah.
to help you anyway. So it's a red flag to me. But again, I've been in this industry. But if for people who have been in the industry and want a good auditor, I would say most of them think that's a red flag if the value is a touchless slash no human contact with the auditor.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I love what you said, the auditor to make you better. So I come out of banking, and banking, there's the three lines of defense. And so the first line is the control owner. The second line would be oversight to the control owner. The third line is internal audit. And then you have your external audit and regulators. So it's called three lines of defense for a reason, because that internal audit layer is to help defend me beyond that when I go to external auditors and regulators. And so the audit is my friend, is the point. It's not, we're not, we're on the same page. Like if I engage you to be my auditor, yeah, you're validating what I'm doing, but we're on the same page. I want you to come in with a certain measure of rigor. And if I'm an executive, no disrespect to the people running this stuff, but I really want you to come in and I really want you to give me comfort that what everything that's said is being done. Because I don't, if I'm an executive, I don't know security. I'm kind of trusting you to help be on my side of, okay, this is a good thing. So when we go and we dumb down the audit, we miss all of that. Then they're actually not making us better. They're making us worse. They're
Yeah.
actually deteriorating our risk position because we have this false sense of security. Well, the auditor said I was fine, but the auditor was bad. Instead of going hire the training that's going to bust your bahookie when you go to try to work out, you went and hired, the kid up the street who's like, oh yeah, you're doing great. You're doing great. And oh, I worked out. I'm doing great. No, but I didn't go hire, Mr. Big old muscles who's going to like whoop me when I try to do this. I mean, there's the difference, right? But if it's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
important to me, I'm
yeah.
going to intentionally go after somebody who's going to make me better, and is going to validate what I'm already doing, and that is really a big thing. And then the fully automated one for me, I mean, we already talked about there's so much of this stuff that's people in process. I'm sorry, you just cannot automate all of that.
Yeah,
So if you
yeah,
hear fully automated, be warned.
yeah. And I did want to say like, yes, no, like the way I'm talking about it might sound like I'm against technology and stuff, but that's
Oh
actually,
no,
like we
I'm
said,
not. Oh yeah.
I want people to understand, good auditors still understand how to leverage technology, right? And the technology should help with the audit, and it doesn't
Oh
mean you need
yeah.
to take screenshots. Maybe, APIs, uh,
Correct. Totally
returns
agree.
and API results are perfectly fine. It's just understanding is that data complete and accurate, which sometimes is a challenge. But
Yeah.
I'm all for technology and improving the audits and using it. It just has to be, we have a risk as an auditor that if we rely on evidence that we didn't do a proper due diligence on, that could come back and
Yep.
really hurt us. So, we have to do the proper due diligence on all the audit we receive, on all the evidence we receive. But
Yep.
it doesn't need to be screenshots. I'll put it that way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's people, process, and technology. I'm definitely a tech nerd for sure. So I love good technology, and there's some really solid GRC tools. As a matter of fact, we have a session coming up on June 3rd about selecting a GRC tool. So if that's something that you're interested in, by all means, sign up for that because I'm a high proponent of the right tool. I am not a proponent of the easy button. And so what do we do? You definitely build security. That's what we've talked about this all throughout here. This is mitigating risks. This is not checking boxes. So security first culture and really baking that into the organization. And then I know we're only got like a couple of minutes left, but Troy, what high level, like what do you think are some of the most important things for choosing the right audit firm?
All right, putting me on the spot. What's the most?
I
Well, choose
am.
me. No,
Yes.
I'm kidding. I think it's just liking. I think it's trust. I think you need to
Yeah.
trust the people behind the
Oh,
audit.
trust is good.
I,
That's
I think
great.
if you trust the people you're working with, they're knowledgeable, and and you know that their quality and understand they've been in the field, or the people running the audit or the people who are working with the auditors have been in the field a long time. Doesn't need to be, and I don't want to say you can't be an entry level auditor, but um, trust is the biggest thing I always say. Like the auditor you're working with, and be able to say yeah, that these people did my audit. Here's our audit report, and know when you give that out, I know the people that did this audit were good, and I liked working with
Yeah.
them, and that's
Oh,
it.
that is so good. And you trust them when you know they've got your back, you know they're doing the right thing, you know they're working with you from a customer service perspective, from a risk perspective like that. And I think it's really quite simple. It's integrity. Like if we operate in integrity in how we build and run our programs and protect our businesses, select auditors, conduct our audits, then, then that's it. This is not that hard. And then what's at stake if we don't do that? Well, quite frankly, all of us. Cybersecurity is a problem for all of us. It's our identities, it's our families, our children, it's, protecting people, protecting companies that don't protect themselves and have a breach, then people lose their jobs. And so now those people don't have livelihood. I mean, this is a problem for all of us. It is a societal problem. And so we need to take it really serious. Well, that was amazing. Just a couple of final things. Hotman Group, we will do a GRC health check for you if you reach out to us to kind of help you with where your gaps may be. We also have quite a few sessions upcoming. So please take a look at those and sign up for the ones that definitely you want to participate in. We answered a few questions already as we went through this. Troy, did you have any final thoughts? I really appreciate you taking the time with us today. Thank you so very much. Do you have any final closing thoughts for folks?
Uh, no, I don't know if there's anything final based on what we've already talked about, but I enjoyed this conversation. And
Very much so.
if you can always find me on LinkedIn posting a good meme
Oh, I
or a
love
good
your
April
memes.
Fool's joke.
You
Um,
got me this morning. Yep.
yes, you can. My contact information is on this slide, but
Yep.
yeah, if you have questions, always feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to talk about these things. I enjoyed this conversation, and thanks for inviting me.
Yes, absolutely. Do reach out. Thank you all for your attendance and taking your time. Connect with us on LinkedIn. And just like Troy said, I am as well. And we're happy to answer all of your questions. We would like to hear from you. Thank you so much, Troy. Happy April Fool's Day. Really appreciate the conversation. Have a great rest of your spring break. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. See ya.